I will declare the meeting for June 18th, 2019 open. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for May 21st.
I will make the motion.
Second.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
And we have a bunch of new public hearings tonight. The first one is for 800 West Center Street. When we get set up, I will read it into the record. Under the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing June 18th, 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall Conference Room. A notice of intent filed by Terry and Ed Deming in order to upgrade a septic system for a single-family home within 100 feet of a bordering vegetative wetland at 800 West Center Street. And we're open. And you have green cards.
Yeah.
Is that done first?
Will this help pull that up there, maybe?
See if we need it. Alrighty.
Good evening. I'm Brad Fitzgerald from SFG Engineering. We're the project engineers representing the owners, the Demings. What we've got, it's simple. It's a septic system repair. The existing system now is a cesspool with possibly an overflow in the backyard. We're looking to get that out, put in a new septic tank, pump chamber, and a leaching area. We put it really the only place we could put it to get it to maximize as best we could our setbacks from, we've got the Hockomock River on the west, and we've got bordering vegetated wetlands on the south and the east. It's basically an island lot. This is right by the bridge where the river goes underneath 106. So we were approved by Board of Health last Thursday, I believe it was, for the variances that we needed for setbacks to the wetlands and the river and the water table. Basically, everything beyond that pine tree that's shown, which is that kind of black splotch, was not good material. So that's why we've kept it up near the house, and we're trying to work with the grade as best we can, but it does require a pump chamber to get enough separation from the water table. Basically, what we're doing is we're providing a much better situation than is there now, which is probably a cesspool in the water table.
And I believe this house is up for sale.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
You have a tight spot and not much to work with. John,
Exactly.
do you have anything?
Well, I don't have any issue because most of it is, all of it, I'm sorry, is inside the existing lawn area, and it is taking an old antiquated septic system out of the lot and putting in an updated Title V septic system. The only issue that I have is that since it is a sale, that the order of conditions, if you were to approve it tonight, should require the placement of conservation signs and markers along the edge of the flagged wetland. So at each one of the flags, a PVC marker with the sign on it would indicate where the protected wetlands are.
Around the entire property.
Not along the riverbank, but along the wetland, which is basically the back and the side.
Yeah.
My only other question would be the existing storage trailer. Is that going to be staying there or going to be moved if the people that are currently living there move? I'm just a little concerned with a storage trailer that close to the river.
I don't know the answer to that.
Do you want to have that?
I'd like to see it.
Do
not
they own
there.
it, or is it rented?
I don't know that either. I mean, I would. My assumption would be that it would go because, but I don't know that for sure. I mean, where that is, it's actually fairly stable. There's riprap on the slope. There's asphalt running right up to the front of it.
So it sounds pretty permanent, though.
I mean, the sheds are close to a wetland on the other side. I see storage trailer and I start to wonder what's being stored in it. And that close to the river. I mean, if it's paint, if it's fuel, oil, gas for a lawnmower, piece of equipment.
All of the above?
Yeah, I mean, that's my only concern. If there's a way to address that during this whole project, then
I would suggest that perhaps a condition be that if it were to remain, that there be no storage of hazardous materials in it. We could agree to that.
okay. Anybody else have anything? Comments?
No.
Just one question, John, on the marking for the wetland. Some of these wetlands are actually off the property, so are you talking maybe 1, 2, and then a couple along this property line?
Yeah, that would work, because we don't want to upset Shaw's Corporation. So yes, let's do that.
So we could do 2 on the back and maybe 3 along the sideline. Do you have a sample of the sign?
And is it
Okay.
cleared right up to the river?
It is.
It is. Okay.
In fact, it worked out good. They have solar lights that they use, put right on the top of the bank. We just tied our flags to those. So.
All right. Anybody in the audience? Questions, comments, anything? All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I will entertain a motion to allow a waiver for work within the 50-foot.
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And I will entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions, including conservation markers and limited storage for items in the existing trailer.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Is this the property? What is that? I know it came in the list. Oh, it's okay.
Next we have 153 Scotland Street.
Yeah.
So there's the storage.
Okay. Oh, okay.
These are the sheds.
All right. Okay. This what? Some kind of pond, or what is this right here?
That is the shadow of the pine tree that's
Oh,
there.
okay.
And probably the stuff
For the
anyway.
record,
Okay. Okay.
under the Wetland Protection Act 161 and the West Bridgewater Conservation Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing June 18th, 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, by notice of intent filed by Paul Milligan, in order to upgrade a portion of a yard within 100 feet of a wetland at 153 Scotland Street. We have green cards and we're open.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Michael Koska. I'm here representing Mr. Paul Milligan in his endeavor to do some work in his yard to straighten out some drainage issues that he has. About a month ago, I guess, I met with Paul, who lives here at 153, and his new neighbor, Mr. Ayer, at number 143. And they both expressed a similar interest in getting rid of the slope that goes down to the property line, and quite frankly, it's very difficult to mow, and it doesn't look like it was, too well planned. So they got together and we talked about it, and we said we can raise this middle up and slope it to the rear and slope it to the front. In sloping it to the front, it made sense to see where the surface runoff was going. We couldn't find a pipe here. Paul said that perhaps there is one there, but it's probably broken. So one of the things that we would like to do is in the channel that is within the town layout, put a 40-foot long plus or minus pipe so that from the high point here of 70.5 sloping this way, it'll pick it up, and everybody on that side of the street seems like they have a pipe under their driveway, so it would continue unimpeded. And part of the request would be to clear the existing debris and vegetation to allow unimpeded flow in that channel. It basically gathers paper cups and papers and things of that nature, and to give the respective homeowners a chance to keep the front of their property clean. To the rear, it would slope off. There is a edge of wetlands here on the Route 24 layout. It was basically pulled off of the as-built and the septic plans that were done for these houses. And we show a 25-foot buffer zone, the 50 and the 100. Presently, the property is sloped to go down towards the, that would be the southwesterly corner. And we would like to pick that up before it got to the abutters property at number 155, Mr. Mayor's property, and direct it to the back by forming a berm and a swale to pick it up. We have planned some erosion control so that hopefully what they could do is do the construction in the, during the summertime. Summer goes by real fast, and then fall would be a good time to, plant grass there and so forth, because right now probably if you planted seeds, all you get is, crabgrass and weeds and so forth, and people go on vacations and, they don't water it and so forth and so on. I don't anticipate that we need a pump-out pit, in the middle of the summer, but we have one there in the event that during construction that, some water needs to be pumped out, maybe diverted somewhere, because there is, it kind of settles in a little hole here at elevation 66.9, 66.8, and we have to make it to the channel here. We basically put in just a 6-inch pipe to, slow it down a little bit with a 68 contour over it, and it would go into a channel that's 66.9 at one side of the property line, down to about 66.3. So it goes very slowly through there, which will, get some filtration and so forth. That's what we've come up with. One, to divert the water into the wetlands before it reaches the Mayher property, and also to straighten out that ski slope that's between the two properties. We filed under the Wetland Protection Act, and I guess under a administrative permit for stormwater.
John, comments?
So my report indicates pretty much a lot of the information that Mr. Koska just provided you, but the only issue that I have at this point is that the swale outlet that separates 155 Scotland Street and 153 Scotland, the Locust property, needs to definitely outlet into the wetland that's adjacent to Route 24. So it may, as it's shown on there in that green shaded area, it may have to be extended at least to the property line, and hopefully that'll get it into the wetlands. But we can't let it not outlet to the vegetated wetland that's along Route 24. Otherwise, it's just going to pond up there, and it'll be just another nuisance for both property owners at 155 and at 153. So other than that, I don't have any concerns.
We could
Mo
easily
mentioned to me, and I will also bring it up, that the chicken coop and shed, I mean, we've looked at the historical imagery of where the wetland line and where the trees and the vegetation was originally over time, and the 50-foot, we typically hold that's a 50-foot no-touch. If the wetland line is there, and considering this is a mitigation for filling that was done without a permit, I'd like to see everything out of the 50-foot and the markers put at the 50-foot line. And the no-touch from there back.
I would agree.
So would I.
Any problems with that?
Well, I'll have to ask my client if he can roll that chicken coop approximately in the. Does that include the chicken coop or the chicken area that they run around.
I want to see everything out of the 50 foot.
All right,
We can move that forward. It's just sitting on cinder blocks. We
So-
can move it. That's not a problem.
So no chickens in the 50-foot buffer. Okay.
I mean, if you need to extend, like John said, that swale further in to get that water out.
You know, in looking at this with John, this 66 contour could be extended and maybe in the micro topography raise it up another half a foot to 66.5 or something like that. So, yes, the idea is to shed the water so that, you know, between.
I mean, you may not get rid of his pond in the spring the way we've had with the heavy rains, but at least it may help divert it
may
off
help.
a little bit.
You know, from what we did with the original topography, you know, contour 65 kind of extended in this area here. I don't doubt that it extended into that property, but everything kind of shed down towards that southwest corner. But we'll try to work it out so at least the flow is, split there, and so that, once the summer starts, at least, the grass can be cut. Because I noticed too in the spring that it was wet, it was very difficult, and the grass grows pretty good once the summer hit, the sun warms it up. So we'll see if we can't alleviate that issue as best we possibly can. But like I say, all those houses slope to the back with nowhere for stormwater go. It was once a field, and now it's a little bit more impervious than maybe the field was. Or maybe they didn't even farm the field until just for hay because of the wetness. So, it's an existing situation that we'll try to make better.
Anybody in the audience, questions, comments? Right. Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Just one
Yep.
thing, do we have markers on the 50? I know we have them on.
Yeah,
That's what Tim
that
had
was
asked
my
for.
recommendation, to put them along the 50.
Okay,
Right, once the chicken coop is moved.
okay, great. Okay, go
Have a motion to close?
ahead. Motion to close?
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion to allow work within the 50 foot.
Make the motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And a motion to issue an order of conditions, including conservation markers and removing everything outside of the 50 foot.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Oh,
You're all set to go.
One question.
Yes.
Commission. Can you mow the grass within within the 50-foot buffer zone?
No,
You didn't say that.
it was previously disturbed, yeah, but historical imagery has that as.
Well, it could have been, a hayfield before that it was, hayed or mowed or harvested or whatever you want to call it. But, so
If
I
you
don't
look at
know.
the imagery up until the last probably 4 or 5 years, it was not a grass area.
So-
I have
It
to
was
agree.
vegetated.
Right. We'll, I think
I mean-
Paul, Mr. Milligan will, respect the 50-foot now that, we're all
I mean, if he
aware of it.
wants to discuss enhancing it or something,
Right.
besides just letting it
Okay.
go back to weeds or whatever,
Right.
we could put blueberry bushes or
Well-
something that.
Right. Okay. That would add to
Yeah.
the value of the property. Okay.
And I will give you a heads up on that informal thing
Yeah.
later on, because I didn't get a chance to go over it with him.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, sir.
Next, we have 300 North Elm Street.
Oh, thank you.
Paul.
I'm trying to see it on Google. I can't.
Thanksgiving setup. Under the Wetland Protection Act and West Bridgewater Wetland Bylaws, Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing June 18th in the McBrown-Donald Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for notice of intent filed by Paul Stewart in order to raise an existing single-family home and reconstruct within 100 feet of a wetland at 300 North Elm Street. And we're open.
Alrighty. For the record, I'm Peter Lyons with Collins Engineering Group, representing the owner. As mentioned, we're here tonight with the notice of intent for the raising and reconstruction of an existing 3-bedroom home and the associated septic system. Quick overview of the site. It's a 70-foot wide lot with wetlands in the rear, more or less bordering the existing tree line. On the plan, we show the 50 and 100-foot buffers. The proposed house is going more or less the same footprint as the existing. I would like to note it's a smaller footprint and more conforming also from a zoning standpoint. The proposed house is approximately 60% the footprint of the original. The proposed septic system, we're keeping it as far away from the wetlands as possible, which puts us out in the front yard. Out there, we're looking at a gravity system to an elevated leaching bed, approximately 20 by 30 feet, plus the overdig and associated grading. Couple wetland area notes. Total lot disturbance, 8,500 square feet. We have a total disturbance of approximately 6,500 square feet within the buffer zone. We have proposed some mitigation with this along the backyard. There's an existing overgrown area we're proposing to clean up and replace with 1,200 square feet of a wetland meadow mix. That area is to be protected by a proposed PVC fence. 3 conservation posts will be located along the fence with conservation signs as shown in our detail. Pretty much the whole site as proposed is surrounded by a 12-inch compostable silt sock. In the backyard we have a stockpile area and a dewatering pit. Only reason they're all back, there's no room in the front yard, so they have to go back there. If it's done in the summer, we're not anticipating a ton of water, but it is a 84-inch removal to build the new system, so they may run into dewatering. We show a detail and a location for that. Everything's sloping to the back of the property. We show swales along the sidelines to keep the surface water flow on our property. Anything else?
You got a tough site.
It is. Right now it's a rundown house there. We're just really looking to clean it up. Failed system, it's all going to be upgraded and replaced.
Is the house being torn down?
Yes.
Building a new one?
Both,
No
yeah.
room there.
The house, is it occupied now?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. I don't think it's been probably for a little while either.
Yep, it's unoccupied. The proposed house is a smaller design, a little more compliant with the side setbacks and everything, so we're more conforming all around.
John, any comments?
Again, I outlined pretty much some of the information that Mr. Lyons had indicated, but I don't really have any issue with this. It seems like they've covered just about everything very well, including cleaning up the area that is adjacent to the wetlands, where they're going to plant some meadow mix and so forth, and then cordon it off with a single rail fence, which is a good visual barrier, plus the sign. So I think getting rid of the leaching pits in the backyard within the 50 feet of the wetlands is a darn good thing. So I'm pretty happy with the whole plan and what they proposed. So good job.
So the leniency on the 50 is because it's prior disturbed in the back?
Yes.
It's just the way it's been?
And it's only a small portion of that deck that's now into the 50. And for all of the mitigation measures that they propose, it seems like a good option.
Going this way? Or?
I only,
Which way is we measuring? Off here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all of the
50.
So-
backyard is really in the 50.
yeah.
Right. So the orange line is the 50-foot buffer,
And this has all been previously disturbed.
Okay.
and everything towards the
This pool's
wetland,
back there already, so they're getting that.
Yeah.
and everything between the erosion control barrier where they're showing the fences and the signs is going to be upgraded.
Do you have enough room to get the utilities in? Water, gas, anything like that? I mean, I'm just looking at how tight that front is.
Yeah, they'll get it.
Yeah.
I didn't see them on the plan, but I just,
I'm honestly not exactly sure where the existing water and
Right,
stuff is,
okay.
but no, we have the
I see all
room
this
to get around the
yeah, I
tank.
mean, it's going to be a little bit longer of a run
And then you can
than
see
straight
how-
shot, but
Yeah.
How it looks.
I just wanted to make sure you had enough
Obviously,
room.
we try to do the straight runs, but that's not always feasible, and this is that case. Again, as John mentioned, everything's, I wouldn't really call it a lawn, it's kind of overgrown, but we're not anticipating removal of any trees. We're just cleaning up the overgrowth, and it'll be loam and seeded at the end of it all.
Okay. Anybody in the audience, questions, comments? Yes.
Yeah, I do. I'm Kathy Lynch. So my lot is to the right of this house,
Yep.
and my only concern would be, I don't quite understand how the drainage is going to work, but my property is already like under the water table, so I have a concern about any additional water coming over onto my property. That would be my main concern. So how is that going to be addressed on that side?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as you know, obviously everything slopes from North Elm down towards the rear. I
Yeah.
did speak with you the other day. I saw that mostly behind your house is the lower spot. So, our hump, the high end of it is going to be up at the street. Most of it's going to flow straight past the house. And then along the lot line, there'll be like a small depression to kind of intercept any water, prevent it from running off onto your driveway and towards the garage. So the
Yeah.
proposed contours on this kind of show a channel that will pick everything up and keep it on our property and bring it out to the wetland.
Okay, so because like immediately behind my garage is actually a little stream that goes out into the woods, so like what are the chances of that being inundated with water?
If anything, that
That
it's.
Was that what you
I
started
don't
on
know if
stream
it's
was?
actually a stream, but if there's a little channelized
I think
area in the wetlands,
That's the one.
that can sometimes help to let things get
300.
carried away. We
Yes.
don't have
Yeah,
any,
okay.
any named
Because
streams or anything on
It
our
always
map. So
reverses from
as
what
far
you
as the
showed.
resource area,
Took me a second.
Yeah,
We're just
so I always
calling
think
it a
those
wetland.
things throw me.
there might be a low spot
I
that
always have to
does,
see it.
move some water.
And
But
if anything, it looks like the way they designed it, it's going to, for one, channel it further away from the back of the garage, and maybe slow it down a little bit from going in that direction.
yeah, and it's really the only option. I mean, even if we kept, hypothetically, the existing house, the system would either go here and be the same result, or in the back. But this would be more of a concern because that would be, preventing all this from getting by. Right now, we're starting up high and flowing it out to the back. So,
What is it now? What the elevation?
Yeah,
is
what's the
now?
elevation in the
is
front?
it now? Right now, the street line is about 49, and we're proposing 51 over the tank. So it'll be about a 2-foot rise, and then you slope about 3 feet as you get to the south side of the property, and 1.5 feet, 2 feet along the northern edge.
But where does the swale or whatever start? And I mean, in other words, if you're building that up to 1.5 feet,
Yep.
my driveway's right there.
Yep. So
If we have a spring like we did this year, I'm a little concerned about that. But
Sure. So the only water that would be coming off of this is going to be the water from this area. From here over is going to go back towards North Elm Street, It's, to answer, I guess, your question simply is, it doesn't really show it on this, but there will be a swale pretty much all the way up to the front of the line. We're proposing a driveway over this field, so pretty much right at the edge of the driveway, we're going to start to make that depression. And that will all be contained on the property.
Roof drains on the building. Could you? I know the plan hasn't been fully decided of what the actual building looked like, but the roof drains, if they could empty to the back, so that you didn't add more water onto
Yep.
the sides, that would.
Yeah, no, that.
I mean, I'm just thinking anything you can do to keep the neighbors 2 yards from.
Yeah, because
Yep.
the other house, the new house that's on the right side of me, was probably built 7 or 8 years ago. And that was built up about 5 feet over me. And you can see in the back in my leaching field, like how much water is coming over from that land. But also the problem with that was the driveway, because now water runs off from their house down the driveway, which is in the front of their house, down the sidewalk and into my driveway, because my driveway goes downhill. So I did ask the town, and they did it, put like a little,
Berm?
looks like a speed bump.
Yep, I'll put a
And
berm along
that-
the front of the
And
driveway.
that did help, but I still get a lot of water from the street coming down. So I'm just concerned. I have absolutely no problem with a new house going there. It's, only going to improve the value of my house, and, I've been looking at that house for a long time. So I don't have a problem with that, but my concern is I definitely don't need more water in my house or yard, because I have 2 pumps in my house right now down in the basement, and so that's my only concern.
Sure.
Anybody else have any comments? Hearing none, then I think we can close this public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moved. A motion to grant a waiver for work within the 50-foot.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And motion to issue an order of conditions, extended order of conditions.
With
the roof drains.
With the
going
roof
to
drains
back.
going off the back and the markers in place.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All set. Next we have 613 North Elm Street.
Me again.
You again. All
You
righty.
have to go out the door and come back.
I'll have that plan. Under the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing June 18th, 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for a request for determination filed by Joseph Rolfe in order to upgrade a septic system for a single-family home within 100 feet of a wetland at 613 North Elm Street. We're open.
All right. Again, for the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Engineering, representing Leona and Joseph Rolfe. Leona is here with us tonight. Quick overview of the site. We have it's a RDA for a repair on an existing 4-bedroom home. On the south side of the property, we have a BVW. Also shown are the 50 and 100-foot buffers. Our proposal for the system is to combine the plumbing to a 1,500-gallon septic tank in a existing 1,500-gallon tank, and then adding an additional 1,500-gallon combo tank. So the first tank will be settling, and then a pump chamber in the second tank, and that will go to an elevated leaching bed, 25.5 by 33 feet. The property slopes from Perry Avenue down towards the wetlands. So we're trying to keep it a reasonable height, which puts us inside the 100-foot buffer. We're using the existing grade, so as proposed, it'll be pretty much flat coming off Perry Ave, and then a little bit of grading before a retaining wall on the southern edge of the field.
Okay.
All the components are kept in existing lawn area and outside of the 50-foot buffer. We are as close as 70 feet to the leaching field and 58 feet from the proposed septic tank and a little bit closer to the existing. With this plan, we're proposing erosion control from the house surrounding the tanks over to the shed and then up the sideline all the way to where it intersects with Perry Avenue. We're showing dewatering locations and soil stockpile outside the 100-foot buffer. Along the existing tree line, we have proposed a total of 4 conservation markers. So we have the locations and the detail spec for that. We propose, I showed you the location, but it's a 12-inch composting silt sock for the erosion control. This is a failed system, so it needs to be replaced. Other than that,
Has it been approved by the Board of Health?
it has, yes.
Any comments, questions? John?
As my report indicates, the applicant's representative filed a request for determination, even though the septic system's within 100 feet of the wetland, and it's outside everything is outside the 50-foot buffer. But we've always been concerned about the fact that under a request for determination, there is no real record on the registry of deeds that there's wetlands on the site, and we've had some issues in the past with a new owner coming in and not knowing there were wetlands because it was never a order of conditions filed at the registry. So the applicant's representative, Collins Engineering Group, has indicated along the existing tree line that they would set conservation markers with signs, and that will alert a potential new owner that there are some wetlands there. There's really nothing to hold the property owner to keep those signs in there because it isn't an order of condition. So in my report, I've indicated that I would suggest issuing a negative determination on this, that it doesn't need to file a notice of intent if they were to provide us a conservation easement between the signs and the wetland line, which is basically the wooded area. All of that's within the 50 feet, and in some cases less than 50 feet away from the wetland, but it's right at the edge of their yard as it currently exists. So I thought that would be a good way to alert any new owners of that property that there's wetlands that are protectable on their property.
Is this a sale?
Yes.
So everything
It's all mowed.
to the back of the lot is all
Wetland.
lawn? I mean, it's being used as a lawn right up to where,
The tree line.
There is an existing fence. The tree line, if you can kind of see, wraps up and goes like this.
oh, right there.
So
okay.
it's maintained lawn right now. I mean, there's already a natural border. I mean, if we could avoid doing the easement, I don't know if you have any other.
You could avoid it by filing a
Suggestions.
notice of intent.
Yeah.
Too often, we end up seeing the markers get put in without teeth there. All of a sudden,
They
the markers disappear.
Sure.
And even the brand new homeowners that bought the house knowing it said the markers weren't there when we moved in. but they were there when the builder finished the house, and we've had problems, so anytime we can,
And on a notice of intent, we can require an as-built plan.
Right.
And on the as-built plan, you have to show the markers that were set. And then if they disappear, we can hold the property owner responsible because at least at the time the certificate was issued, we have evidence that they were in. And all of a sudden they're gone. So now there's no excuse.
I mean, that being said, even if when we do our as-built, I locate the markers, so we would, submit the plan to the Board of Health, and we could send Conservation an as-built plan saying that these markers were in place along the existing lawn. I mean, that would give the Commission a little bit of a record to say that, you have.
Yeah, there's no requirement to make sure that that happens because we don't have an order of condition. So if for some reason it gets lost in the shuffle, whereas if your applicant is looking for a certificate of compliance, we require the as-built and we get it.
Okay.
Why would an easement be a problem?
Honestly, I don't really know the answer to that. I know that we have a closing hopefully pending, so we are trying to get this all
Why are you
moving.
pausing? Yeah.
So if we put the orders of condition tonight,
well, they have to file a notice of intent if we're going to do the order of conditions, unless they're willing to do an easement.
So if your office were to prepare a sketch for an exhibit plan, we can write up the actual easement and it won't hold up the works.
Okay. I mean, if that's what it's got to be.
When is the
that's what it
closing?
is.
July 1.
July 1?
Shouldn't hold it up with.
I mean, this house is being sold, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's already empty.
So
So if you can get me that exhibit
Be the
sketch,
quickest way to get it.
you gotta do what
this week,
Gotta be sold, though.
then I can write up the conservation easement
Gotta do it.
the end of this week or beginning of next week, and then you can record it.
Do you want a sketch on here quick? Anything specific or?
Sure.
Once.
I mean, this has happened in the past. We don't need this happening again.
Sure.
Yeah, we weren't aware of it either.
So that's
a lot of things.
Yeah,
crosshatch area
coming
would be
from
the
city, you
conservation easement.
There's a lot of that here. I mean,
Just whatever the
find out.
geometry
Find
works
out
out.
the hard
Go
way.
marker to marker, more or less.
Yeah, from the property line to the markers
Sure.
to the property line.
Okay.
Anybody in the audience, questions, comments, anything? Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I will entertain a motion to issue a -3 with the requirement of the conservation easement.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Now we are in the continued public hearing. 373 Crescent Street. We have a handout. Everybody should have gotten.
Are there any other little maps up there? You might have to share.
Yeah, I can look on.
So the little plan like this is the mitigation plan, and the most up-to-date plans are on top of the folder there.
Anybody want a copy of a plan, or you want to look at what he's got?
Yeah, just look.
Okay. We have looked at it fairly extensively.
No, I mean,
Okay.
All right.
For the record, again, my name is Michael Koska. I'm here representing 373 Crescent Street in their endeavor to put together a site that's more environmentally friendly and more friendly towards the neighbors also. The last time we talked about, I don't know, there must have been 17 or so points that John brought up. And to clarify some of those, we had a meeting on the site on May the 9th, I believe it was. No, I think John reviewed it May the 9th, and it might have been a couple days afterwards, around the 15th or so, I think it was. And we took a look at some of the took a look at some of the area, and we also decided to make a change. And what we were do is we had a restoration area in here, and it seemed to make some sense where if we leave the 50-foot buffer untouched, that everything's going to grow back. And there's a property line right here where there's a business, 325 Crescent Street by Mr. Michael Ross, I guess is the trustee. And there's like a parking lot in there that's been filled in, the wetlands have been filled in. So we had before, for some of the, let's call it filling that was done here and there, a 3,500 square foot replication area. I called up Ken Thompson, who's a botanist, and he flagged the line. We emailed the points to him, and he came up with a 4,000 square foot replication area. Instead of trying to do something back there, which is going to go back naturally, over here what you have is basically a lot of stuff in the wetlands. So here's the property line here. And he started here and went around, and you can see that on the plans I indicate the edge of pavement. So this is all of that fill material that's basically on the slope there. So if I may, those things that we discussed on the site were 12 points. And I think that I've covered them on this plan. I don't know if John had a chance to review it. I was a little bit tardy, let's say. Item number 1 was the detail of the swale. So I'm going to just keep flipping back and forth. The first sheet of the plans didn't change. It was an existing conditions plan, so I'll just keep flipping back. Under item 1 here, we have a 4-foot wide riprap, we're calling it a filter trench, and it's approximately 12 inches deep. So the detail of this particular swale that is running here, 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 and it goes to there, and then there, down to here. That is the detail of that. That was item number 1. Detail of 4-bay check dam. What we found is before we had a swale just around here, it seemed once we got some more topography in the area here, it made more sense to take from a high point here of 90.25, slope it to a 4-bay here with a controlled outlet structure. From that high point, slope it this way and a little bit this way to a base of a 4-bay of 87.5. Again, with it's a V-notch weir, and it is designed to allow for 1 CFS per second. This one here is going to take from this point, slope down here, and from this berm this way. So item number 2 and 3, let's say, detail of the 4-bay. Here is the 4-bay here with the berm, 3-to-1 side slopes, and a stone check dam. Generally, these stone check dams and plans and designs that I've done are more or less used for if you have a slope over 2%. because that allows any silt, instead of just settling to the bottom, if it is, if the runoff is, silt borne, then at least if it goes up against a check dam and then it'll slowly leak over the top, that it'll get some chance to settle out. And the detail of the outlet structure is this V-notch weir. It is in height 1 foot. It's got an opening of 30 degrees, 47 minutes, 27 seconds, which leaves it an opening of 0.54 feet at the top. And according to the formula for a V-notch weir, that should allow 1 CFS to pass.
Is that the standard pretty much?
No, they vary. But it's the standard as far as a control structure. You can have a broad crested weir, you can have a little hole in a concrete slab, let's say, that's upright. There's various control structures, but one of the more popular ones is a V-notch weir. They're easy to build. The guy pours it in a mold, puts some boards, make sure it's 0.5 bore and a foot deep, and you got your V-notch weir.
And you're making the slope to each point yourself, right? I mean, they're making it slope,
Yes.
the water,
Yes.
all the stuff.
I'll give you for an example. Make sure I turn it right side up. Here we have a contour of 90, so it's 90.25, so it's going to be about 3 inches high there. And as you go down here, it's 88.8. So right now, it's right pretty much filled to the wetland.
I mean, that's where it is. That's just the way it is right now, right?
Yes,
just
it's
the way
gonna
it
it's
sits.
gonna be for the most part cut into the grade
Okay.
and not raised or
So, I mean, the pitches are basically there right now.
yes,
You're
and
just
that's
kinda-
why
You're just digging into
You're
the.
digging it to make
right,
it.
and that's
go
why
that way.
we decided to do 3 of them because it seemed to make sense with the way the existing contours are.
So you're not.
Instead of trying to drain it all
Yeah.
the way around. To
Right.
get
It makes sense to pitch it, do one, and that way there you've got a little bit more control also, I think,
Because
anyway.
you're not filling anything to make it go that way. Everything's just natural, right?
And,
Yeah.
Right, and then under item 4, proposed contours for swales using width, depth, and slope indicated on site plan. So this is 4 foot wide at a scale 1 inch equal 40. It's about 1/10 of an inch. And what we did is, use the existing contours here. We found it easier to contour it and put in 3-4 bays, and it made sense, as opposed to try to contour something in the micro topography and try to make it go from, let's say, a high point here all the way down there. It didn't. I think to build and also its functionality would be better for 3. And then we can see if it's a problem, then it's isolated to, one of these 1, 2, 3, 4 bays and the area that contributes to it. So we did do the contouring. Invert elevation along the swale. We're sloping it this way. I didn't quite, we have a 90 up here to an 89. I mean, if it's 100 feet, then, halfway down it's, 89.5. I didn't put any spot grades or anything, John, but I think that somebody with a laser can set up here at 90.25, go down a foot, and then be able to shoot it. So I think that we tried to do a real good job of contouring it properly.
I think with the contours that they're showing, which the other plan didn't, it serves the same purpose. So,
Invert elevation at outlet structures. Well, we've got 3 of them. And so with the 3, not only do we have cross-section here, but we also have 4 bay number 1, 2, and 3 with all of the lengths and so forth of all the dimensions of it. And then under 6, where's 6? I tried to do this. 6, all of these are, you can see elevations of the 3 4 bays, and each one of them has the the base, the outlet elevation, top of berm, and inlet elevation. So those are all in the little boxes for each respective forebay. Then we talked about floor drains. Each of these units or buildings, or however they may be subdivided, need to have a floor drain that would go into a 2,000 gallon, well, first it would go through an oil water separator, then into a 2,000 gallon tight tank located outside the building, and the covers would be watertight and so forth for occasional pump up. You would think that somebody that, it would cost a few bucks to do that, they would minimize or not do, washing and cleaning of any substantial nature in there. But it's a preventative. Here is a detail, the oil and gas trap detail. The planning board is looking at this too. That was one of their concerns, and not only that, but Mike White, the building inspector, was also looking at that. So, it's going to be, let's say, mandatory that they.
And that's for each building?
Each
building
that would have the
Double.
capability
Okay.
of,
Of
let's
the
say,
drain.
a vehicle going in there and being either washed or repaired, that it has a oil water separator on
As long as it has a hole in the floor, then it's going to have one.
I'm sorry.
As long as there's a hole or drain in the floor of the building, it's going to have one then?
Anybody that uses the facility that could pick up any oil or gas or anything from a vehicle, it'll have a grate within that bay in the building.
Okay.
That will
So it's going to be
have
like
a
one
pipe
day
that
out
goes
of it.
to the oil gas separator, and then anything after that will go into a 2,000 gallon tank, tight tank, for storage and to be pumped upon need, let's say.
Okay.
So that was that, and they will be installed per 248 CMR 10.09 and 10.10 and 314 CMR 1808. Roof drain systems on all proposed new roofs, plan, view, and detail. Now with stormwater, what one of the standards is that you take a half an inch over the roof area. That first half inch is considered, basically pretty much clean water. So from the roofs into the gutter system and down into an infiltration system, we have a new addition there. So we have this infiltration system. For this little 16 square foot addition, we have an infiltration system there. For this building here, we have an infiltration system there, and they're all sized to take the 1/2 inch over the roof area. As far as any detail for that, sheet 3 of the plans, basically what it does is it comes down downspout, sized up to handle the 1/2 inch. Once the system is full, these are 24 inch overall from the bottom up to the top, then it can back up, and from the downspout it'll back up and just go in out the overflow. But 1/2 inch of rain is basically will catch most of the small storm events. When you get into big storm events, well, once it fills up, it's going to overflow. ECB, which is the erosion control barrier, is needed along the wetland edge of the proposed replication area. Well, now this replication area is missing, or it has moved from here to there. That report that John handed out is from the botanist, and I don't know if there is something in there about the erosion control barrier. but it should run from basically along the wetland edge. And then once the replication area is finished, it probably should put one on the top edge also. I don't know if that says that in Thompson's report, and I just, as I was going through these today, I said, oh, okay, I don't see one on my plan. But that, I think, should be covered somewhere in his outline, his report, and so forth. So anyway, that's where that should be, but it's not on here. If it needs to be on here, then it needs to be on here. Straw wattle detail needs to show diameter of wattle. Okay, so we go on this again, and 12-inch diameter set wattle and 2 or 3 inch deep trench, 12-inch diameter wattle. So that's there. Label the material, the parking areas, pavement or gravel. Okay. So what was done there is, I don't know if you can see it, but this pink area here represents asphalt and gravel. I would call it, some areas it's gravel, some areas it's reprocessed material, but the actual asphalt is about from the edge of this building, goes down around here, hits this existing garage, goes out this area here, and all this is either building or asphalt. From about here back, it's either gravel or reprocessed. And that's what's existing. Last but not least, need a defined gutter along the street entrance to prevent Crescent Street runoff from entering into the subject property. Back of entrance apron to be raised 3 inches above gutter line. See detail 5 foot from edge of pavement. So we have a detail here, which is labeled number 12. That basically shows that from Crescent Street here it goes up so that Crescent Street drainage stays in the gutter line of Crescent Street. And so since the last time, one other thing I wanted to mention. I noticed when they were forming this berm that's out here, it seems to me that the width at the top and the slopes, and I don't know if any of you folks know where the old Anthony's charcoal pit was in Bridgewater, but it was on Route 18, and what they did is they put 2 buildings out in the front, and they put a 40B out in the back, and they made a berm, and they put some white pine on there, and I'll tell you, it's grown real nice for a screen. So not only that, but we have a height here from 93 to 98, so that's about 5 feet. If you put it, at least a 3 or 4 foot tree there, and white pines on their own grow pretty well, and I think that to try to get some of the abutters' views to be to see green as opposed to yellow. I think between the berm and hopefully some fast-growing white pines that we could accomplish that. So that's what we tried to do to make some improvements. We're back before the planning board, I think the 26th of June, and I am going to basically give them the same plan, which I think, like I said, their biggest concern was the roof drains and so forth, and they realized that the commission had a handle on the stormwater business. So that's what I have to report this evening.
Certainly a huge improvement over the old.
Yeah, it seems like it's morphed into this through John's diligent efforts.
I'll give this back to you.
Got the original.
You want the original?
So, the only concern I have at this point is that that we will address the erosion control barrier around the replication area in an order of conditions, and also there is some vagueness in the floor drain layout that they have because, as Mr. Koska mentioned to me earlier today, the owner doesn't really have a final plan of what they're going to do within the building, but the building inspector is going to require that. The planning board probably will defer to the building inspector. And what I'm proposing in my report is that we get a copy of the final design and have to approve it before it's actually constructed. Typically, it's a plumbing code issue, and so the person who was hired to do the installation would be following the code anyway, but I think we need to make sure that happens, and so I recommend that we put it in as one of the conditions. Other than that, it is a big improvement. It seems to hit everything that we need to do for stormwater. It's improving what was there considerably where nothing was controlled. It just went off into the wetlands. And we're correcting an area that had been filled by going over on the right side of, let's say, this site and restoring part of it, and it still leaves us options that down the road we can maybe get some more work done there by the person who filled it in, which doesn't happen to be the current owner or the people that owned it before him. It seems to be the abutter did the violation.
Right, here's the line right here, and you can see that it's clearly over there, and
so
yeah,
it won't be wasted if we do some additional enforcement action. It'll be just added to.
right, you got something to pick on right over there to get more out of it. You know, if there's something that goes astray, then there's an area that perhaps can be tackled in the future.
Anybody in the audience? Questions, comments?
I have a question about the back corner,
Yep.
the West Street side. Are they going to continue that burn down or plant anything there so we don't have to look at the pile of dirt?
Yeah. What this plan indicates is the existing berm that's there, that it's going to be extended to the 50-foot no.
What they have there right now, I can see their pile of dirt because it took down all the trees, shrubs, everything.
So if we extend that to the 50-foot, naturally we're trying to leave the 50-foot undisturbed area to come back again. But then from that point, all of these little things indicate trees.
Okay.
And so that, it was mentioned at a previous meeting, how do you replace a tree that's 30 years old? My answer was you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, if you at least put a berm up about 5 feet and plant some trees on it, at least there's,
Well, the berm's got to go down a little bit farther because
it shows on the plan that from here.
And that big stockpile, I believe the intent is to have that large pile removed also.
Right.
Yeah.
This is going to go eventually.
because I'm in the back corner,
But-
and that's all I get to see is that and his equipment. And
So could you point out where you
Yeah,
would
where
like
you
it
are
to-
so we can...
Yeah, he doesn't show up too well on this plan. But we're going to extend that
I'm
approximately
by Laura Peters,
80,
okay?
80 feet.
Okay.
All right?
So he can't go any farther, let's say up the sheet where you towards your
50,
finger,
See where your
because
finger
it's a 50-foot buffer.
See, right here is the end of the current berm.
Yeah.
These solid lines are proposed contours. So this is going to be extended another 80 feet to the 50-foot no-touch area.
Okay.
So we can't have him go any
It's
more.
going to cover Laura's.
Well, if
Laura's right there, I
all right,
believe.
so if Laura's corner's right there,
Yeah.
the 50-foot buffer zone is there. It'll stop at the buffer zone, but extended another 80 feet beyond what you see right there right now.
All right.
Another 80 feet.
But then hopefully
Yeah,
that-
unfortunately, we can't
that's
have them
gonna
head
regrow.
west any further
Yeah,
with
right.
planting
Well,
anything
they
or
ripped
disturbing
up
more.
what was there.
Right.
That'll
That's my
grow
major
back.
concern.
Hopefully that'll all grow back naturally, though. That's the
Right.
Yeah,
intent.
well, the
Before
trees
that
aren't, I'll be dead and gone, we'll all be dead and gone before the trees
You
come
didn't
back.
stump it, right? You just cut them and left stumps?
Yeah, there's
I
some
didn't-
down there, there's,
Did somebody stump it, or did they just cut it and leave
they
it?
just cut it.
They cut it.
Are the stubs still there?
Yeah.
Are the saplings or
No.
coming out of it or
Nope.
anything?
Nothing.
No?
42 trees.
It's also the first year. Something should be coming out and
You would
suffering
think.
up.
Yep.
I mean,
And, you know,
But-
there
Yeah,
again,
Harvest Park Corner's coming up good now.
I have somewhere over here, where do I have it? Existing berm to be inspected by design engineer and stabilized with loam and seek to prevent erosion. You know, I do intend to keep, you know, through John if he's available, you know, the Conservation Commission up, you know, to speed of what's going on there. And if we can, you know, perhaps see something that is somewhat that can be
Enhance it a
done,
little bit, yeah.
then we'll talk about it. I think that the guys that, you know, the two owners there, you know, they don't want to just see what was done years ago just disappear and they have nothing left, but they are willing to work with, you know, to enhance the site.
I mean,
And, you know, even like over here, they're planning to plant trees, so anybody coming down the road here, you know, doesn't have to see
That
in
doesn't
there.
do the people on West Street any, we have
Yeah,
to
I mean,
look at it.
Yeah, well, we got trees here too, and we got a berm going another 80 feet, so we're trying to do
I
something.
mean, if
for
they
it.
had stumped it and disturbed the soil and stuff, then we would look at it differently. But most of the time, when we've had them just clear cut it or cut and leave the stumps, 2 or 3 years,
It
it
comes
comes back pretty quick. We've
and
had
it comes
some
back
really good ones that
thicker
have-
than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, as he said, if John's out there or we have to go out and look at something and the stumps and nothing is coming up and there's no vegetation, well, then we might need to look at it and say, okay, some of those pines, we might want to
Right. We
add a few more small
Or
ones.
we might want to put a few red maples in
Yeah.
there or something that's indigenous
swamp
to
white
the
oaks
area.
or something to get
right.
some height up there to get something
Right.
taller. So
You know, I mean, I don't think they're going away anywhere. And they want to be good neighbors, and if they have any other activity in here, naturally they know they got to come before the commission. And then you gotta,
And Mother Nature.
And the neighbors are also
and the
looking.
neighbors again.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Oh,
it's
yes.
just,
Sure, they'll let us
you
know.
know, and, you know,
We're looking.
I know the neighbors aren't going away. We don't want them to go away, but these guys aren't going away either. You
my
know?
only suggestion would be for the white pine burn that you're putting,
Yeah.
stagger them a little bit, not in just straight lines, just so it visually starts to fill in
Okay.
and give them a little. I mean, straight lines.
Yeah,
it's
I've got-
easier and quicker.
Right. I've only got
But-
so much top of berm to work
Right,
with,
but
but
if you can,
if we can, you know, we'll see what we can do
Yeah.
to
yeah,
to
zigzag
stagger-
it a little bit.
to
and
stagger them
you
a
may
little bit.
throw
Right.
one more in and zigzag
Right.
it just so
Okay.
it
All right.
fills in a little quicker.
Yeah, I'm sure we can meander them a little bit so that it, you know, it looks good and they have their own space to grow. And like I say, white pines seem to grow pretty thick if they've got their own space. They'll have plenty of sunlight there because they're in the open, and so you know they should, you know, be able to grow. And these guys, it's not like they're lacking for equipment that they can't, you know, make a berm wider or do this or do that or something to, you know, rectify something that's not doing too well.
Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Alrighty. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I will entertain a motion to grant the waiver for work within the 50-foot.
Make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions with a special condition for the floor drains to be added.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much for your patience and time on this project. It's been a little bit
It's a
lengthy,
vast
but,
improvement from what was there.
but
I mean,
well, yeah, thank you, John, for giving me all those revisions.
What would you say to the last motion The floor drains and what?
The standard order of conditions with a special condition for the floor drains. Next on the agenda, we have Luke Estates, a permit extension request.
This was a request to extend the invasive species control order of conditions that we issued that are about to expire. So we received it in time, and I recommend the unusual 3-year extension, because this is for the invasive. It's not like building a roadway or something like that. So I'm recommending 3-year.
Any questions?
No.
Not, I'll entertain a motion to issue 3-year extension.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moving and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. In 1 Mahoney Place is requesting the release of their bond.
The grass is growing sufficiently to stabilize the site, and I recommend release of the bond that we have to, for surety that it gets done, and it got done.
Any
Okay.
questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to release the bond.
Motion to release.
Second.
Moving and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Now we are on to administrative discussion, 140 Brooks Place, septic repair change.
The owner of this property had been in to talk to me about what could be done to minimize the impact of the septic system that is located 8 feet from the back side of the house on Brooks Place. So here's, I know it's far away, but here's the house, and here's the septic system 8 feet from the back door.
How high does it stand?
The existing grade at the back of the house is approximately elevation 50, and the top of the septic system on this plan is 52. This plan is a third revision. So it's I believe it's 2 revisions past what we approved. And so before it was even higher. But they've gone back to the Board of Health and had revised the plan a couple of times, never coming back to us to ask if we had any issue with it. The contractor who was pricing out the system came in and asked some questions about it and told me about the revisions, because I asked them, why isn't there a wall being put along the side of this property line that was originally on our plans? And it was because he said they lowered the system. So using DEP's regulations, in order to grant waivers by the Board of Health, they give you a list of things that you can grant, but you can only pick 2. You can't pick 3 or 4 or 5 waivers. And they granted a waiver that says they lowered the system from 4 feet to 3 feet above the water table without advanced treatment, because that's the only way they could have got that additional waiver, was to put an advanced treatment unit in front of the leaching area. And so the Board of Health approved it without the advanced treatment. So I'm recommending that because of the huge impact that this septic system has on the poor homeowner, and that everything is still outside the 50-foot buffer, that the Commission grant a minor project change on this so that they can...
From the original plan to this, now what, the third revision? What was the elevation changed?
I don't have it with me, but it was at least a foot higher.
So they didn't go down deeper, they just spread it out.
No, they just lowered it. Instead of being 4 feet above the water table,
It's now
They're
3
now 3 feet.
Oh, all right. So
But if they went any further than that,
then they'd be right.
then they would have to add the separator.
They would have to have advanced treatment.
Advanced treatment just
Yeah.
before it.
And they can't go back any farther with it?
No.
Is that a new build?
No, it's a repair of an old
Yeah. okay.
bad system.
When did we originally approve it?
Yeah.
Somewhere near September of last year.
So nothing was done.
Nothing's
in the
been
year.
done until now.
Is it vacant? Is it vacant?
No. The woman's living there. She just wants to be able to eventually sell it. So it's not for
Yeah.
sale, but.
Eventually vacant.
So what I'd like to do is put out a.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd like to put out a reminder to engineers that if they are changing it after it's been approved by the commission, that they adhere to our standard special condition number 1, which says you have to come back to us. And again, it was just by luck.
I was going to say, it was just my luck he came in to ask questions.
Yeah.
Other than that, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
We
known.
wouldn't have known about it.
we get an as-built eventually. That's revision number 4, 5, 6.
So that's another special condition we have to put in these projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to call it a minor project.
And it won't affect the water, won't affect anything? Is that right, I'll do that?
No.
No. Okay.
Actually, it.
Will be less.
It's less, and it improves the cost of this thing, which is
Yeah, I
astronomical
understand,
at this point.
Does it have markers? Line markers?
No,
No.
no, we didn't require it because they were outside the 50-foot
Okay.
buffer.
I was just hoping every time a project comes by us, we could add, there's no way we're going to catch up with.
Just peck away
Yeah.
slowly but surely. We'll try to get as many as we can.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Move to second. Yep.
Just as a suggestion, you're having let's say a reminder going out to the engineers that, any revisions, you should come back to the commission on. You can't make guys put notes on their plans, but I don't think that too many of us engineers would be opposed if we were to put some note on a plan, in the general notes that homeowner / contractor, please be advised any change of these plans would require a review by the Conservation Commission.
Because most of the time they just look at the plans. They don't read their order
Well,
condition.
They don't.
I mean,
and a lot of times, a lot of people feel we got a permit, now we can do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And they just, it's just awful.
Yeah.
But I know I'm, in listening to this, discussion that you had on this one here, I wouldn't have a problem in putting on plans that, go before this commission.
I thought of that, John. Would it require on that box that says all the revisions to have a little box on the side that has conservation sign-off? If it required under their order conditions, and just say, okay, what was the date conservation signed off on it? If
Well,
Board
I
of
think
Health has to sign off on it, and
the building department sends us a notice of all building permits, whether it be pool, deck, new house, commercial building. And if it requires a notice of intent, I indicate that, and we eventually get a filing for it. If it's not an impact and it's, let's say, a replacement of an existing deck, and they're just replacing a rotten set of steps and all that kind of thing, I sign off on it. There is no requirement for the Board of Health to tell us that a change has been made or for us to sign off on it. So if it requires a order of conditions and eventually a certificate of compliance, we have some say in it. But I think Mr. Koska's idea of putting on the revision box so that it can't be missed by the person filling in the blank that we've revised the plan. That if the revision is after the conservation approved it, it needs to come back. And it'll be just a standard note from day one. And if the engineer ignores it, then at least we have some.
The engineer's fault, not somebody else's.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of empty lines there. You can put it right on, no problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I, you know, it.
I mean, that's what it's
I can see what you guys from time to time have the same dilemma that I do. You go out to a site and the guy says, "Oh, need an as-built." Never call for a stakeout or any grades or anything. You go there and you just say, "What did you do here?" Jesus.
I mean, a minor change is a minor change, and we look. I mean,
Right.
but
Technically.
Right.
when
exactly.
you're already in revision number 3, and we haven't
Right.
seen
And
or heard of any of them.
if John went out and said, "Look, this guy came in. He did a little minor revision. Instead of grading it this way, he put up a little stone wall where he's going to have flocks in them or something." Then John probably say, "Yeah, just a minor change. Nothing to be concerned about." But if he extended the grade into the wetland or closer to it than the plan showed, well, then a different story. But
So I'll work up some wording, and we'll see if you like it, and then we can send it out like we've done some of the other advisory things. And it was a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to
I'll make the motion.
Second.
move and seconded. All those in favor?
This is a motion to what?
Motion.
Consider a
to,
minor
minor-
project change.
Yeah.
Consider it a minor change. yeah.
It's all you said, but make a motion.
So the motion was on the floor already. So
I
we're
know,
just
I already had that part done.
next. We have 55 Crescent Street. Review documents for
Oh,
the revised
I'm
conservation
advising again because I've run out of time.
time.
And
Not a problem.
And I don't believe that, no, I didn't get it on the report, but 156 Bryant, I don't think I included it in my report.
No.
But I recommend issuing the certificate of compliance for 156 Bryant Street.
Which was.
Which one was
It,
that?
it was a septic upgrade, and it's just in from South Street. Linda Simpson's is in a butter.
Oh, okay.
So it's the next one away from South Street.
Is that the one with the new addition?
The garage that got moved from.
No, that's Linda Simpson's.
Um,
This is,
I don't have the folder in
it's
front
a,
of me.
Yeah.
the Whites own that house.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Oh, they did.
All right. Then I will entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance.
156.
156
I'll
Bryant.
make that motion.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And the agent's report, I think we only have numbers items 10 and 11,
Oh,
which I believe 10 we need to expend some money because there's an air conditioner that is now
Defunct.
lived past its life.
It's
we,
spelled
we
C-R-A.
Kitty and I withstood it last year for the whole summer season without an air conditioner. And there was talk about taking one of the offices that were being retrofitted with the new
Yeah.
type of wall mount here and putting their still usable one into our through the wall space that we have. And none of them fit without doing some carpentry work both inside and outside the building, and so we avoided that problem.
Can you just make a suggestion? Isn't there? We got one like at home. You just put it in the corner. It's a stand-up one.
The floor model that
The
just
floor
has
model.
the
We don't have room. There's 1,000 files on the floor. We need
Well, the
bunk
files
beds.
on the air
Throw the
conditioner.
files out the window, but those things don't fit in.
We'll need
But,
bunk bed.
But that's what we're
chairs
talking
and
about.
cabinets.
Okay. Not Home Depot. Ocean State.
Because those things weren't
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
good.
Can you get that in? Something like that?
There's a proposal by a local HAVC or whatever it is, HVC.
HVAC, HVC, or, yeah, we know what you mean.
ABC.
ABCD. But anyway, it was $5,600. And I asked Michael White to consider tying us the lunchroom and the server room, which is just below us, all in one, and for him to incorporate it in the building budget rather than just our department. So that is in process, but it's probably going to take a while. So I think for the interim, if we could get one of those.
Yeah. You can only take off so many clothes.
I agree.
Okay, good.
Especially in a public building.
I made a motion
With
to
pants.
expend funds for an air conditioner.
Make the motion to expend funds.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
And we have still some surplus in our budget that's unspent, and we're going to need to do some field testing on the water quality and also the potential for bacteria in the water. So that usually requires a field testing kit and also a water quality monitoring kit. And so I'm asking for permission to purchase these items without an actual invoice, but provide you with that before or at our next meeting. So
Because
because
the next
of-
meeting will be after the fiscal year, and if we want to encumber the money and spend it now, we
So
need
we
to
have to-
vote to do it.
Rather
So
than use it before
We have a
I'm sure we
couple
have
of
to ask for it,
signature
right?
pages.
I will entertain a
No.
motion
I hope not.
to
we don't have to
purchase
ask for it.
All
We
right,
can
good.
just
the
spend
office supplies, water testing, and field testing equipment with the surplus money left in our account.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
That big fine I read was
So on Pleasant Street, where the concrete material was deposited, and also we had approved a wetland line based on a recent botanist flagging. DEP had been monitoring the site apparently for quite a few years, showing on each aerial photograph how much change that was made from year to year. And so when we issued the order of resource area delineation, they stepped in almost immediately, very quickly, actually surprisingly how quick. They jumped right in and said, we're taking over. We're going to review the whole project. And after basically 2 years of, it's about a year for DEP to issue from Lakeville a enforcement order that says restore the whole site back to what it was before, which was appealed by the owner. And in the appeal process of DEP's decision to make him restore the whole thing, the Attorney General apparently got involved because of the solid waste disposal solid waste stockpiling that was done at the site. So they had two court cases running at the same time, one by the Attorney General and one by the DEP wetland officials. And so the resulting consent order that was agreed to by all the parties imposes fines and timelines of when things are to be done. And so the net result is that the site will be restored substantially to, if you'll recall, a little box area that the commission gave its tentative approval. The rest of it's going to be restored and left to be wetlands, and the site that they gave him will be eventually a small building, commercial building. And so the net result is that it was a vast improvement on the site from all the years of so-called or alleged wetland filling. And I only say alleged in that there was evidence, but nothing was proven, and to settle the whole issue, all the parties agreed to what is in the consent order.
Wasn't there a lot of cash involved too?
There is, yes.
Where does that go
So that goes to this, actually, I think I remember seeing
State
something.
or some to us.
Nothing to us, but
It's like $250,000. I think.
Yeah.
it's a lot, and there's still a lot of cost in the actual work that needs to be done to restore it. So the owner of the land made a decision that it's a point of no return, so cut your losses, settle it, and move forward. So it's a business decision. Even though it's a costly one, it's a business decision.
Yeah, I was curious where, if any of the fine money made its way to us.
They shut the cameras off of that.
Couple things under other. I'm a little confused, but I'll throw it out there. We received a certified letter for the parcel on Lincoln Street that was Russo's greenhouse. And it looks like they want to take it out of 61A and just take it out. And not give the option of first refusal to the town because they're just removing it total. However, there's a second letter that says that they're reference to a buyer and there's a plot plan for a development on the property
Just the one side with the,
with the greenhouse.
not where they keep
Not the other side, because that's not the. I'm a little confused how they can have it one way but not the other, because I know when I built my house, we had to take it out of 61A, and even though we were family of the property owners, which is an exemption, we still had to give the town the right to first refusal.
Really?
Oh, that's not right.
Yeah, I know, but we still had to ask the town.
When I had to take mine out, we didn't have to.
Yeah, we had to go before the town and ask them to sign off and say no, even though it was within the family member, and it
That's
was.
supposed to be an exception.
Yeah, it is, which we
Oh, I'd go
fought
back
with
to
them. And
them. I'd appeal that
they weren't about to say no, but I was a little
100 years ago.
ruffled feathers over that one. I'm just curious, this one, how they can.
So the date of the first letter, if I recall correctly, they mentioned in the first letter that they were taking it out of 61A, and they made reference to a plot plan that showed a potential future development on it.
Made reference to a subdivision plan of land, which was omitted from the original package.
Right.
And notice, as referenced, a buyer, but be advised that this is a conversion request from the current landowner.
So the
But-
first letter had said that they I don't know if it said they had a buyer, but they
They were looking to develop it and subdivide it.
right.
And
And
it
so
referenced the plan.
so the administration sent the town's administration office sent the attorney a note saying you didn't send us a copy of the plan, nor did you give us a bona fide offer to purchase the land. And so they responded with that second letter saying that that they aren't saying that they're selling it, they just want to take it out. Now, that might be just a strategy thing on their part. But
Why didn't they just ask for the 61A out and just let it go at that?
Which is what they should have.
Until they got the okay or whatever. Then go and do that with the.
Pay the taxes, take it out, and then
Then go ahead.
6
and
months or a
submit
year
the
from now
next
say,
one.
now we're going to develop it.
Yeah.
And move. Instead of muddying the waters by saying,
Well, you know.
we're going to develop it as a subdivision with a possible buyer, but we just want to convert it now. I mean,
Because you know what's going on now.
yeah. So the town could say, no, we're not going to allow it, we're going to deny it. And then, I mean, you tie it up in litigation and all this. I would be inclined to say, hey, if the price is right, why doesn't the town buy it? It's open space, we need it for.
Look like? Is it
I mean,
upland?
it's cheaper than
Town doesn't have
a 40B housing.
Is it uplands?
yes,
Yeah.
I mean there are wetlands on the
Yeah.
property, but
It could
And
be
the water
potential-
table's high to begin with, so they're
and the
gonna have
soils are not the greatest.
Potential fields.
There's
Or,
always still.
Yeah. I mean, it's
The-
cheaper to keep it as fields and athletic areas than it is housing development and services.
There is a town committee that's studying the recreational
Yeah.
needs of the town, and I think because I'm on the committee,
Yeah.
that there's been a demonstrated need for some additional fields, and to try to utilize what we have. So they're really approaching this thing very conscientiously to try to say, let's just not go buy. Let's try to improve what we have, use what we have. And when this came up, I think maybe one person on the committee had mentioned to me, would that make a good athletic field? And the answer that I gave is that almost every site can be developed into a athletic field with proper engineering. And the question came up, what about the chemicals that were used as part of the agricultural business out there? And if you were to put fill on that property, because it does slope away from the road, you could provide a buffer between the playing surface and any potential chemicals that were put into the soils and protect any of the youth that would be on the field. And if the price was right, we could utilize that former agricultural field into a good size soccer field. Or
How big is it?
15.5 acres. And I mean, especially if you look at right down the street, you've got an 80 plus or minus housing development coming down the pike.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an area of town where it's easier to walk to than it is drive across town, across 106 to a soccer field or something. I mean, if they're looking at open space and doing it from a design point, that where can we minimize traffic and keep people in neighborhoods without having to commute and put everybody in cars to go.
So what do we have to do? Just say no?
I think the commission, if it were inclined to do it, to advise the Board of Selectmen that it would make good recreational fields, and it should be considered as something that town could purchase, possibly. I mean, it depends
Right,
on
if
a lot
the
of
option comes up, that we would
We
entertain
would get
it. I mean,
first refusal?
yeah, I mean, if it went the normal route and process, that you're taking it out of 61A, then the town would have an option. Maybe the townspeople don't want to do it, but
Right.
And maybe the price is too great, but if we don't at least express the interest in it for that recreational purposes.
Sure. I would agree.
a motion to send a letter to the selectmen.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Move and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I just know with all the subdivisions that we've seen come through, I mean, we've probably got 50 to 60 more houses in the last 5-6 years, and with another 80 plus coming down the pike.
The only thing I
mean,
look
It's
towards,
not,
though,
you're gonna need a new school, fire station.
that's the thing I'm
police
looking
station.
at. Is
You're
the
lucky you're not
school
in
and all that stuff.
Bridgewater.
The money that's going to be spent. That has to be
600
spent.
already permitted.
Not saying that we don't need the fields, but we got to look forward.
You put another 40 units in
We got to
that
do something about the
location,
school first, though.
We are.
and now you've got
Everywhere,
120 units coming down the pike.
I know.
And
John, this
Where?
is sensitive.
I mean, well,
time-wise.
I'm saying if Russo's developed with 40 and you've already got
We don't
80
have
down
a
the
long
street,
window to
that's
get that letter
120.
off.
If they have-
40 in there?
I don't know. I'm just using that as a number. I mean,
Yeah,
if it's 40B and it's about 3 stories
But he
high
gets-
or whatever, or you get something like Bridgewater has, and
Yeah.
they're adding another one to that one
I saw
already.
that,
I mean, I'm just thinking we've got to start looking.
Take a look. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to say something after the meeting.
just got to keep an open mind and see.
Yeah, and I'll just put it out there and see what they have to say about it, the townspeople.
If
And
you
how
want
the
it,
money
it's
is,
up
how
for
much.
sale.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the town doesn't want it,
True.
but if we don't at least put the letter in of showing interest, then
We're slowly seeing more and more 61A parcels.
And you've been
come out.
hearing that for
And you're
years.
eventually not going to have
When
them
my
as an
kids were
option.
little playing, there was never enough fields. There's never enough fields for the kids to be
True.
playing on. I mean, that's just how
I
it's
mean, they're
been.
already having to spend money at town meeting to put up the netting around the new football
Yeah.
field so that soccer can use it, because it's too wet to use the soccer field at Howard this year. So now you've got $68,000 whatever for the netting.
There, or just,
But like John said, though, if you
Engineer it right.
engineer it right,
Yeah.
you might have to get in there and engineer that one a little bit better.
Right, re-engineer it.
Yeah.
and then that whole section of
Can
that
be used.
Howard Street School fields
Right.
would be very useful. Right now, they're not,
Right.
and it's
Maybe
because
that's
of the
what-
drainage.
I
Yeah.
think the money should go towards something like that.
The drainage was an
And
issue.
they might be thinking that
towards
way.
that. Well, it's existing as a field anyways.
It's a nice field.
Yeah, just don't give up on it. Just go
Plus
in
there'd
there
be
and
parking. That was a big thing. Nobody had any place to park when
Well,
the kids were playing.
you could also put where those trees were planted.
Hmm.
That could have been a parking area too.
Oh, down in the front?
Mm.
I mean, towards the 106 end?
If the had to or something like that at the time, but that wasn't thought of.
And the only other thing under other is Spring Commons development.
Oh, yes.
Planning Board has sent Mr. Peters a letter. Rather, after a lengthy discussion, it says to comply with their conditions, which they're looking by June 6th meeting to possibly rescind the permits on that
He has
development.
some number outside the property. Just that big wooden thing he has with a number. It was like a DEP. I didn't know
That's
what
a
it was.
DEP
Oh, yeah,
file
it's
number.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
DEP number.
So he just hasn't started, is that the?
He hasn't met the requirements.
So what he's doing right now is he's bringing in, he's letting contractors I don't know if he's paying for it, but he's getting fill delivered there by trucks.
Yes,
And it's right up at the edge of the street.
It is.
And the typical way you start a subdivision is you lay out where the roadway is going to be with stakes from the engineer. Then you go in and you grub it out with a bulldozer, which means you dig up the existing topsoil and the subsoil and get it down to what we call the parent material, the solid natural material below the top and subsoil. Then you bring in your road fill and you build your road up from there. And basically what he's doing is he's bringing it in, dumping it on top of the existing soil, and the planning board is concerned that he hasn't done the normal step, and they want him to stop before he gets too far along.
Is his house gone now? They took that down now. Can't see over the dirt. I can tell.
Who checks the fill too, John?
So typically for planning board construction projects, they have an inspector out there on behalf of the town. That's really up to the planning board to make sure that happens. And I think if I could just refer back to Pearl Road,
Yep.
I know it was discussed at annual town meeting, but if you are proposing it as a private way, then it's not so important to inspect every bit of the construction, from what I just described, grubbing it out and putting down suitable fill, which would be looked at and to decide whether it meets the specifications. And if it didn't, you'd have it tested and show the developer you're not meeting the specifications for road fill.
Right.
And they would have to bring something else in. That wasn't done on Pearl Road. Any spot inspections that anyone from the town did was, from what I understand, was very sporadic. And if the commission was under the impression it was going to be a town road, I would have been there on a daily basis, checking the pipe installation, checking the backfill around the pipes, and none of that was done because it was going to be, the burden was going to be on the homeowners. And unfortunately, that wasn't conveyed, that excuse me, that type of information wasn't conveyed to the town meeting members, and they elected to go ahead and accept it as a town road. Me being a visitor, I couldn't just stand up and speak, but if I were asked, everything I'm telling you right now, I would have said at the town meeting. Whether it would have made a difference or not,
They did accept it?
Yes.
They did?
Yeah. See, and that's how they get.
So
So somebody knew what they were doing, but then somebody might not know what they were doing either because you just want to go to a town road now. Well, there was a lot of things that were missed in between that really kind of screwed around with.
Cut the corners, and now the town's responsible.
Yeah, now we're responsible for that. and
But
that's why
what I don't understand is
private.
why does the town accept them
I
as
don't-
private ways?
I don't.
Because, first of all, they're taking the taxpayers' money. And they know. It's like one hand is washing the other here. The guy's playing games. The town is taking the people's money. and now they don't want. How do you do that? Why don't I just say
They
no?
had the votes that
I would say
what's on
if
the agenda.
in the beginning, if it's considered, they want it a private way, that's the way it should be. But then all of a sudden,
Because
you
you got
get,
people in there who
Yeah,
don't
quite
know
right.
what that means.
so then you get homeowners that go in there that have kids, and
Right.
all of a sudden they,
We're paying taxes,
sent
and
it to
I'm
everybody.
sorry. I think
but
they
now
have
the-
every
while
right
the
to be.
plows aren't coming down there, kids that, have to get out,
Right.
oh, I can't get out to go to work. We don't want this. We want this turned into a town road, so it can be,
Right.
it can't be done that way. This is what's gotta be.
But what I don't understand is the town is going to be the one that says no. We're not taking
I know,
private ways.
and I don't understand why they
Because
don't do
it-
that. Because if
it's not a
considered that
legitimate-
in the beginning,
yeah.
that's the way it should stay.
Because those people that move in there, like anybody who moves into a property,
I'd be
they
aware.
don't know they're in wetlands. They don't know their road hasn't been constructed correctly. It's not fair to take taxpayer money and not give them services, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they should be.
Appraised of it.
Yeah, they should be at least acknowledged of what's going on.
Look, you come here, you're not going to get services. You're not going to get, who's going to move there? You're going to pay taxes and live in a place that you can't get
If
any
you want to move
services?
there, then that's your choice. At least you have a choice before you move in.
But are they told? Just like the wetlands.
course
They're not told about wetland. They're not told about these
Then the
things.
developer
It's not
should come in and
fair.
say, we're not building it a private
Right.
way. We're going to build it with
It's
the
not
intention
fair.
of being
It
a town
isn't,
road.
yeah. It's,
Yeah, but then
and the
also-
town
falls
should,
back on the
the
developer.
town has to have,
Yes.
the selectmen have to say, they have to decide, we're not going to take private ways because we're not going to take people's money and not give them services. It's not right. I found it very underhanded on both parts.
I didn't agree with the
Yeah.
way that went.
Yeah.
That
We had
no, it
agreements that
It
were
was-
being presented at the last second.
Right.
That I
Yeah.
never,
Yeah.
personally, I
Yeah.
never saw what they were.
Yeah, I saw it as I walked in the door. I
Yeah.
got my email copy that showed
But,
up. I was like,
got voted in, so.
Yeah.
So how do we prevent it in the future?
That's the problem. That's the key.
Even if the developer had come in and said, this is going to be a public road, and they did what they did out there, which was very little inspection, perhaps the commission should put in the order of conditions that a compliance consultant be hired to do the commission's inspections all the way through from start to finish. And the developer put in a revolving fund, a certain amount of money that the reviewer, the inspector, could draw upon so that the town doesn't have to pay. It's coming out of a consultant.
every subdivision
Right.
gets a 53G.
Yeah.
for
Specifically for
Right.
this, from now on, to make sure you are meeting.
Right. So when we're sitting here and we know, John can have, that measure of comfort to know that,
You're going to meet it. You're going to make it to spec,
Right.
whether it's a town road or not.
Right.
You're going to meet the town road
I
spec.
wish ours was,
And
but I
that's
think
their
it was
cho-
waived because it's.
And that's their choice right from the
right?
beginning.
But-
Whether they want to have a private.
Look-
Who said
Look-
you can't go back and ask?
Look how, other than maybe some different things that weren't done according to a typical subdivision road, the road is held up, the drainage is held up, your sewage is held up, in terms of, it hasn't deteriorated, so you know the workmanship was fairly good.
As Hugh said, it's a driveway, it's not a.
Well, because it doesn't have a
That's
layout.
true.
It doesn't have a layout.
Oh.
So if there was,
Curbs, there's no curbs.
and it doesn't have an actual legal layout
That's right, yeah.
surrounding it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all considered part of the whole lot.
Yeah.
Common area, the driveways.
When that's the
the-
one that they share a septic too, right? Is
Yes.
that the, yeah.
So
The
if
homeowner.
the commission wants to consider that, we could put it as an order of conditions and then set up a inspection fee account that we consult with a subdivision road construction inspector to go out and watch the whole thing. And that's what I used to do over in East Bridgewater, and I got paid out of that fund that the developer had to submit. And when they were paving, I was there. When they were grubbing, I was there. When they were installing utilities, I was there watching it. And not the whole day.
do that,
Yeah.
sure.
You don't have to be there the whole day. You just have to be there to see that things are being done And it's not 100% guaranteed, because in order to do that, you have to be there all the time.
So,
But it doesn't warrant that in typical construction.
so that, might as well say 53G.
53G would
Yeah.
be a way we
We
could
be
do
being
that.
paid for. Is there somehow maybe we can get a little bit extra money, or somehow that money, part of that can come back to the, to be good to the general fund, add to it,
Well,
to show in a way of it's benefiting the town also, not just,
I don't think you can do that
No.
because the
But at least it's showing that the 53G is being paid
Right.
for by
Yeah.
the developer, and it's not costing the town employees labor and time
I
to go out and do
yeah.
what they're required to do from the beginning.
Plus,
Mhm.
nobody has to worry about whether it's been built right, and
Right.
we don't have to worry about, okay, if we take this road in, we're having more
And the
of a
drainage
problem.
system,
right,
the
everything
roadways,
is
layouts,
working
the
right.
whole-
I mean, I don't know why it wasn't in place to begin with. I mean, if you're going to take private ways, then...
And the farm is
I
going to
just-
be
I
the
found
same
that
issue,
ridiculous.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
and that's even
Is that
bigger.
They
private?
should, yeah.
Going
That's-
private?
that was supposedly
You know
private.
it's going to be, the buses won't go in there,
Right.
so.
Yep.
And that's going to be another problem probably with the new homeowners.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Well, we don't want this. We want it into a town road so the buses can come down and pick up our kids.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine, but it's too late now because
And I've only done a little bit of inspections out there because, again, it was going to be a private road. And I was primarily concerned with the detention basins that are adjacent to the wetlands. I wasn't so concerned with the rest of the drain system, so I didn't worry about inspecting it every day. And the homeowners have given a whole long list of items that they're concerned about throughout the subdivision. So that could have been addressed by
maybe we could address the selectmen on that.
This is Pearl Road,
the farm.
the farm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be a big thing if that ever turned around and says, oh, we want this. Maybe we should address the selectmen one. Make a meeting for them one night and just say this is what our concerns are.
Right. I mean,
I think it was suggested if the commission is concerned, because I kind of expressed my concern, it was suggested that if the commission agrees and basically wants something like that, we should send a letter to the selectmen and talk about it.
Make an appearance, yeah.
So maybe they'll think twice.
Actually, the selectmen weren't in favor of
No,
accepting
none
this
of
either.
them.
no,
No.
that's
But
why I
still,
didn't
it
think
went
they were
through,
going to
though.
take it.
Right, but I mean,
That was
they,
the people that...
Still, it went through.
Oh.
Something wasn't explained.
I know.
when you're at the end of the meeting and you're a special interest group and you're the only ones left, it gets
It
done.
wasn't explained enough to
Yeah.
let the people understand. I was trying to explain
There
it
was no one there, though.
to my wife, and
Yeah.
When they're
she was
when the
for
town's up there repairing
You can't
problems,
be doing that.
we'll understand.
There's certain things you can't.
I know. I feel the same way. I think if you
The only
take
other
the
thing I
taxpayer
think that
money,
we had,
Is a gazillion signatures.
we have signatures, and we just have on file the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries has sent us their fishway operation and maintenance plan for War Memorial Park. If anybody wants to see a copy,
Oh, a couple of things.
Yes.
I've got an upcoming meeting in the latter part of July with representatives from Natural Heritage and the Fish and Game to talk about invasive species control out on the Scotland Street parcel. And what are we calling it, Kitty?
Scotland Acres.
oh, Scotland.
The Scotland Acres parcel, and it includes creating some grasslands so that farmers can take advantage of being able to cut some grass out there, but also by doing that, we keep the
Invasives
down. And it has to be certain timing to prevent any damage to the endangered species that are out there, living species, not just plants. Well, I guess they're living too, but there's wildlife out there that are endangered, and so all that has to be timed properly. And so that's coming up, and I'll keep everyone posted. But that's the latter part of July. And one other informal thing, if I might, to help out Mr. Koska, and is he still with us?
yes, I know he's still here, so I was wondering what do we got.
If everyone is familiar with the parcel of land on North Main Street between Matfield Woods and Westbridge Landing, the two
Yeah.
mobile home parks,
Yeah.
there's a piece of land right adjacent to the driveway into Westbridge Landing that is a existing lot. It is covered with grass up to the edge of the lot, which is wetlands. And if you hold to the 50-foot buffer from the wetlands, there's about a maybe 1,500 square feet. You can correct me because you know more about it, but there's a very small area that's outside of the 50-foot buffer that is really unusable for anything. There's a gentleman who's interested in putting a used car lot there with a manufactured office building, which is basically a mobile type thing, with a self-contained septic tank in it that would have to be pumped periodically, and that would all be in the 50-foot no-touch buffer. And rather than having his client spend a lot of money filing and then finding it's not even a feasible project, he wanted to get an idea how the commission feels about that kind of concept. So what we would have is at least a gravel parking surface created on that grass strip or grass parcel that's out there. It would all be within the 50-foot. They would not have any way of mitigating on their own property for you granting a waiver of the 50-foot no-touch. And you would have a structure, even though it's portable or movable, you would have a structure there. And so I didn't know what to tell him because it basically is a useless piece of land if it can't be anything done with it.
Who owns it?
Sweetman?
Right.
How do you do or
Donnie's
deal with the
behind.
stormwater? I mean, it's going to be a used car lot.
How many
I
cars are
mean,
gonna be able to put on there?
Didn't it come
Okay.
before us? Didn't we have them fence in the back of the property? Remember that little?
Yes.
That
there is
little.
a
Didn't we
file.
have like a little fence? We
Yeah,
had them.
it's
Right.
put
split
yeah.
rail around it.
Is it? It's
What he has
It's tiny. It is a.
I wouldn't.
He was putting like
about
no.
12,000
Me
square
either.
feet, I think. He mows the grass there religiously, he put up a fence around it. There was a building on it one time where he's got power, and
It was a mess.
basically the 50-foot buffer zone just takes away.
I mean, even if we took
It's
an
like
example-
a taxpayer throwing out money away.
Mm.
That's what it
Yeah.
is.
I mean, even
Doesn't
we took
want
an
to give it
example
away.
from Mass Highway and the way they've done their replications on other parcels in town when they've had to do bridge work. I mean, he doesn't have anywhere else to do a replication if it was to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of people that have
Based on our
landlocked land that can't
consistency of
develop
our
it either.
rulings,
I'm surprised it's
wetland
not.
and-
Oh, we're going to give it to the town. That
Well-
hasn't happened.
I don't know. I just-
Possibility, car leaking oil, gas,
and it's
on
in the
gravel.
50.
Yeah.
Remember all the flooding that was over there too with the
Sadly.
river? And remember the
This
flooding
is-
and
Well, I don't know. It's seems to want.
I would say I wasn't in favor of it.
Yeah,
me personally.
If you're going to be able to make a business there to make money,
Hmm.
you should be able to do a lot more than just just from the either us just say okay, no problem without having
I mean,
to.
you can only be able to put, what, 8 or 10 cars?
But I mean, still, I mean, you got to be able to do.
Yeah, you get. I just.
I don't know.
I don't, leaving all the business
To
aspects
tell you
out
the
of it.
truth, I think a hot dog stand will probably would do pretty good there.
A mobile hot dog stand.
Seriously,
A
a
food
food
truck.
That's not a
A food truck would make
just
money
pull
out
in
of
and
there
out.
before I put a used car lot there.
Yeah.
Because that just allows for too much things to happen to the wetland.
Has he got any problem? Whoever owns it paying the property taxes and all that
Can't
stuff.
be
Doesn't
huge.
seem
I
like
think
it.
it's valued at $9,600.
So
A year?
I mean, if he's got no problem with
No, that's
That's the value of the property.
value
It's
of the property.
9,600.
Yeah.
And then you pay the taxes on the 9,600. So
Yeah.
what's the tax rate? 14, 13, something. I mean,
It would be a good place to set up a awning, one of those portable awnings, and sell flowers at Easter, Valentine's Day.
Put some picnic tables
Christmas
and a
trees.
food truck in there. And
Seriously.
Hard for people to pull over there.
You can do a little bit more with that, other than I think better than what.
I wouldn't want to see cars there.
Well,
I
it's
think
not
you're
even
getting
at that.
that
It's
we're
not even
not
at that. You
overly
can do
warm
what
and
you
fuzzy
want,
about the idea.
I think I'd rather see something else
I mean,
being put there.
That area, there's car sales up and down
Yeah.
the entire North Main Street, that section.
Yeah.
Car sales all over the place.
I think there's one just down there with that a building like that, right? Prior to that,
Yeah.
but it's bigger.
Doesn't look like we're getting a positive vibe.
I would say no.
Is West Bridgewater a farm-friendly community?
Yes.
So if somebody was to build chicken coops there with chickens and everything, that would be an okay thing to do.
Probably.
Come every day, water and feed them.
Depending how far away it was from.
Um,
Depending how far
No,
away
we're going
from the wetlands,
Go
right?
and plant flowers.
I can always make suggestions.
I mean, it's.
Someone could.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, he doesn't have enough acreage to get the 61A exemptions, but you could,
Probably would have to
cut your own trees or bring in Christmas
file a
trees.
farm plan, maybe. And get,
But I mean,
if you can do
it's
something like that, I think there's other ways you can probably get a little bit more.
use out of it.
Yeah, I think
And I
cars
just
are-
to
especially
put a
used
building
cars.
on it and then put gravel all over it, and I just
You want to start?
Here they come.
These are expenditures
all right, I
to
guess
be
you got
filled in
your.
right up in the office.
Sorry you had to sit there.
Yeah.
Boy,
But thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much for the commission's
welcome.
time this evening.
Did a
Appreciate
good
it.
job on that plan, Mike.
yes, that was
Well,
That's an order of
You know.
conditions for 800 West Center.
I think
This is for
the
Milligan,
way to do that is,
300 North Elm Street.
you got a good agent here, that's all.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, we know. Bless.
Thank you.
Pay more money.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Extension for Andrews.
Good night.
So I'll just,
no. We're gonna get you on the way back.
no, I'll let everybody else do it.
Yeah.
They don't need. You don't need
Yeah.
mine on that. You get enough for a
For
corner.
none of them?
I wasn't here. For none of them.
For none of them, but there's oodles of them. That's for Mahoney's money.
You're such a rebel, Lee.
Good luck.
John's travel.
I'll sign that.
Oh, thank you.
That one's special.
Keep on coming here.
At the end, you're gonna own a house.
So I am not signing nothing. You're the property owner of this. Are you paying
Now
taxes
you're
on
in the
this?
service.
Now you see how we got rid of that parcel I just talked about. We just bought it.
That wasn't favor that one.
Do you wish to sign it?
I don't need to sign. I don't care. I'll sign or I don't sign.
Okay.
If it takes 5 more minutes, I don't need to sign.
You need a stamp.
They can go to whoever next. Is there anything else?
Not for me.
Anybody? Anything else?
John, did you ever look at that Lincoln Street there? That, how they filled in that little
Oh, beside the driveway,
grass area? It is. It's not, I thought it might have been the driveway.
Remind me, I'm sorry.
next to Russo's.
That guy that was selling his house, it's the other house.
I'll
It's
make
grass area. It's a grass area there now. I thought it'd be more like up on the driveway.
Is 89
Having
one
nothing
more?
else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All's in favor?
Aye.
I second.
I heard that.